start with sort of a caveat. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's limited life experience plus overgeneralization equals advice. That's by Paul Buchheit. And the actual caveat is just that I don't know what I'm talking about. I hear an awful lot in the startup community, especially about the canonical one best way to do this or the canonical one worst way to do this, but it's always bullshit. It's always just what ended up working or not working for that particular team or that particular group. And so what I'm going to talk about today is what's worked really well for us, and I'll try to make it as general as I can. Individual things apply all the time and all over the place, so take it all with a grain of salt. So our story. I started working as an entrepreneur in '09, but before that, so this is myself, I'm on the right, and my co-founder Dan. We were both product managers at Google. Before that, we were both in school. So our first job was we were both PMs at Google, and he worked on Chrome, and I worked on something called Google App Engine, which is a cloud platform, if any of you are engineers. Dan left in late '07 and joined the Obama campaign as the director of analytics. Was there through the presidential campaign, had a lot of really great stories. I'm going to go over one later. And then came back to San Francisco, and that's when I left Google. And we started not one, not two, but 3 companies over the span of the next 3 years leading up till now. The first one is called Carrot Sticks. It's a sort of a social learning game for young kids. We worked on it for about 9 months. I was moonlighting at Google, and then I left, and we were doing it full time from about March or April until October of that year. And we left in October. We stopped working on it in October, thoroughly discouraged, having learned a lot of pretty hard lessons. And you can see here's the traffic graph. We left, and there were around 50 to 100 unique visitors a day to the website, and that includes us hammering the website, and stopped working on it entirely. And it's actually grown on its own, surprisingly, to several thousand visitors a day, which is a pretty big surprise for us. I'll talk a bit more about that later. It doesn't make any money, though. It just pays for its server bills. We spent about 1 month on the next company. It's called Spreadly, and what that was a way for merchants to incent their customers to tweet about them. So the hardest thing we found about Carrot Sticks was finding customers, finding users. So we thought, well, what's a good way to do this? Well, why don't we take the users that we already have and give them a reward for tweeting about us? And then we thought, well, actually, that's not a bad idea. Let's try making a company out of that. And we found pretty quickly that it didn't work. So we got a few early customers, and what we found was that you couldn't pay someone enough to spam their friends and have it be worthwhile for, for whichever online store or whatever was doing it. So maybe Starbucks.com could not offer you a worthwhile enough discount on coffee to make it worthwhile to you to spam all your friends. So that's what we figured out in about a month and a half. Of course, that may still be possible. There may be some really cool things there, but we stopped working on it. Moved on to Optimizely. And I'll show you really quickly what Optimizely is. So here's the Rock Health homepage. I'm sure you guys have seen this all before. Using Optimizely, you could set up an A/B test on this website. So here's our editor. There we go. So here's the Rock Health homepage. I've got a mouse. I can hover over certain elements. You can see a blue line around them when I do. And then I can go down and click certain elements. I'm going to click this one and edit the text. And instead of attributing the quote to Sarah Lacey, I'm going to attribute it to myself. And now the idea is that 50% of the people who land on this page will see the original version, and 50% will see the better version. And we'll measure here which one gets more people to click on maybe get info or to fill out an application or whatever. So it's a way of running experiments on your traffic. It's very useful later on. Okay, so that's our story. So listening to your users. I'm going to kind of walk through sort of the life cycle of a company as I've seen it thus far, and talk about what I think has been most useful for us at each step of the way. And most of this we ended up getting wrong the first time, and probably still have quite a bit of it wrong. But I'll talk about where we failed and what we could have done better, and what I think that I would be focusing on if I were starting over right now. So this is sort of the first thing. This very, very early stage. There's often an idea, but there's usually no product, and there's definitely no users. And this is a pretty common sort of refrain, and the way that I hear it the most is, we can't actually tell you about the idea. It's we're in stealth mode, or we are, you got to sign an NDA, and it's extreme protectiveness of an idea. It's thinking an idea is awesome, and this is absolutely us about 3 years ago, absolutely, without question. And the response in my head that I don't usually say is, no, it's not. The idea is not great. It sounds great. It looks really good on paper, but when the rubber hits the road, it doesn't work out that way. And usually what you find out is that your users don't behave like you think they will. They're not as excited about whatever it is that goes into the product, whatever technology you've built. It doesn't fit into their lives the way you hoped it would, or many, many other things. And all this is completely normal. This is an absolutely natural step of product development. You start with a set of assumptions. Most of them get shot to shit. But in the process of learning that, you end up figuring out what the right things are. So how did this relate to us? Well, Carrot 6. I mentioned we spent about 9 months on it. We started moonlighting in January, or I started moonlighting. They were already full-time. But it took us about 9 months to build this. And what we built first was something like this. So I just made sort of a shitty mock here. I got rid of the, you can see, I got rid of the pick an opponent thing, and I got rid of the little character down here. So this was our first product, and we spent so long on this thing. We spent a long time trying to make the art perfect, just an awfully long time actually programming this super cool thing that says, if you get this many things right, you should interact with the problem this way, and there are like 50 different skills that we're going to micro-test you on and keep track of them. We spent so much time on this, a ton of it. And when we were finally done, we had a product that we were happy with. We were super, super stoked. And we took it to a school. This is months in. We took it to a school and showed it to a bunch of kids. And there is nothing more defeating than watching a bunch of people use your product and just not care about it. Like, it was amazing watching these little kids just not care about what we built. I mean, they were fidgety. We thought they'd be really excited about math because that's how we were, or that's how we think we were when we were little. But they just didn't care. They wanted to get up and play. They wanted to talk to each other. It was really hard to even get them to focus on it. And the teacher, we thought she'd be so excited about the 50 levels of skills that we'd programmed in and all the kind of complex logic about it. The teacher really just wanted a way to keep her kids quiet for 45 minutes so that she could focus on a lesson plan or something else. And it was just, this was a case of us not really understanding what was important to our users or our customers. So we went back to the drawing board, and we built a really quick way to make this thing social. And we built this silly little thing where you could design your own character. And a couple months later, when we were done, we went back to the school. And we threw that in front of the kids. And most of them ended up playing for more than an hour. They requested to actually stay inside and not go out to recess. And that was a big lesson for us, because the entire first, we could have saved months of our development time. And this is months when we were burning our own we weren't earning salaries, we had no money, we'd taken no investment. Months of time, we could have figured that out pretty quickly by throwing a quick social thing together and putting it in front of them. Teacher was thrilled. I believe the school still uses it. Why we stopped is a different story. We had a lot of misunderstanding about the market, who pays for things, how easy or hard it is to sell to schools. We learned an awful lot of lessons. I'm not going to go into most of them here, though. So this is a book that we should have taken more seriously early on. I don't know if you guys, any of you guys have read it. It's called 4 Steps to the Epiphany. And I can see some of you recognizing this. This is the one book that I'd recommend you read about entrepreneurship if you're going to read anything. It's by Stanford, or maybe it's Berkeley. I think Berkeley and Stanford professor, Stephen Blank. He talks a lot about what he calls customer development. And he has, I think, a similar bias to what I probably have right now, in that he builds revenue-generating companies. You're selling something to you're selling something useful to someone. And so some of the things in there don't really apply, but a lot of it is all about developing your customer or your user at the same time that you're developing your product. So instead of sort of design, build, release, and then figure out who's supposed to be paying for this thing and how to talk to them, you do them in parallel. And preferably you start with a lot of the customer development. So find 10 users or 10 customers. Put some mocks in front of them. If you don't have a product, you don't need a product to validate a lot of the things that you're probably assuming about your users or your customers. I mean, if your user is someone with an iPhone or a giant insurance company, it doesn't matter. You should be in front of these people talking to them from the get-go and showing them what it is you're going to build and making absolutely sure that you understand what problem you're solving in their life, or at least how you're going to grab their attention. If you're building like a YouTube, you're not really solving a problem. You're creating something that people love, right? What is it about what you're doing that people will love? What is it that they're going to sacrifice other things for, that they're going to, that's going to give them the justification to insert that into their lives? This is super, super important to understand. How and when would they use it? Had we had one conversation with a teacher before we built that entire thing that we were so excited to get down and build, engineers love doing this, just get into a quiet room and code, code, code. It's the easiest and funnest thing. We could have had one conversation that would have told us that a teacher wouldn't care about most of the stuff we spent so much time on. How would they use it? They use it to keep their kids quiet. If you can build something reasonably educational that kids will enjoy, the teacher will love it. Beyond that, a lot of times they don't have the expertise to even know. Many of these elementary school teachers don't actually understand math beyond what they learned in their days. I mean, it's really surprising, but it's a lot of stuff we didn't know. And how would they find out about it? You built the greatest product in the world, but how are you actually going to get your users to find out about what you've done? All of this stuff falls out of these conversations that you guys should be having all the time. Okay, the next step, so the beta. So you've done your validation, you understand what problem you're solving, you build a bit more of it into the product, you've got a handful of users now, and they're coming back to the product. That's awesome. You're starting to get some actual validation that you build something people want. Analytics are not important. This is a bit of a heretical thing for me to say, I think, because of what we do for a living, but I really believe it. We spent at least a week, probably more than that, implementing Google Analytics down to the tiniest detail of carrot sticks. So making sure we tracked every single event and where everybody was coming from. But it was stupid. We didn't have any users. Like, statistics are not going to tell us anything. We could have gotten an awful lot more information by just talking to the users we had. So being ruthless about finding them. Who are you? Why are you using my product? What are you getting out of this? It's sort of the same vein as before, but now you have an actual product and you have people that you're not sitting in front of using your product. That's a big difference. Selling early and often. For you guys who are building revenue-generating products, you're expecting people to pay for it, you guys should be selling from day one. And that means when I say find 10 users, find 10 people to pay you. It's harder than you think, but it's so valuable. And sell it yourself. Don't hire someone else to do this. They can't, and they shouldn't be able to. This was sort of a mantra that we used, which is don't hire this until you see it in the mirror as a used car salesman. So you should be the one who's trying to get people to pay for it. You should be the one who's saying, no, it costs $50 a month, and watching them cringe and thinking, okay, that might be a little high, or like, nailed it. You should be the one who's actually collecting the money. You should be the one who says, no, you cannot use it until you pay me for it. Because that's a real big validation point. So you can get people to sort of say, oh yeah, that's cool, that's neat. But if you're actually trying to get money from them, they're going to be a lot more sort of discerning about what they do if you force them to pay you. It's really important. And it's a lot of early stage entrepreneurs, ourselves included, didn't learn this until too late. So we decided it's better to get users, we're going to give it away for free. We didn't validate that people would actually pay what we were doing, for what we were doing. This was us. I just thought it was pretty interesting how long we spent on the different projects before we actually had revenue come in through the door. And again, this is a little different if you're not collecting revenue. Some of you may be building sort of user-based startups where your goal is to get millions of users and not millions of dollars. That's fine. 7 months on carrot sticks before we had a single paying user. For Spreadly, it was 1 month. We thought we'd learned our lesson. And I think arguably we did, right? We didn't have a great idea, but we figured that out a lot quicker than with carrot sticks. And then with Optimizely, we actually got people to pay us money before we had written a single line of code. And that was, I remember by that point, we'd gotten so self-skeptical, we were so discouraged. And my co-founder had the idea for Optimizely based on his Obama experience. And he pitched it to me, and I was like, yeah, that's fine, but let's see if people actually pay for this. And so he hit the phone book, and he started talking to some of his contacts who ran web development firms, and you pitched it to them, and the first person you talked to thought that he was getting an actual product pitch and said, yeah, just send me an invoice. Sounds great. And we started collecting $1,000 a month for a product that didn't exist yet. And that was more money. That was more money. It was funny. Now, to me, $1,000 a month doesn't seem like very much. But at the time, I just couldn't believe it. It was like rolling in money. You know, it was like the end of Scarface. I was so excited. It was more money that we made the entire 9 months of CareSick on the first day. So that was a really great feeling. Another great way to get user feedback that isn't just talking to them is take the right shortcuts. So if you're going to build something, I mean, the best way to figure out if someone's going to use something or what the behavior patterns are to build it. Problem is it takes forever. So a lot of times you can take shortcuts and build sort of a half-assed version and still get the same input, the same information, without actually going all the way. And the trick is to pick the right shortcuts to take. So this is the pricing page on Carrot Sticks. There's a basic version that's free. There's 1 month for $3.95, 6 months for $19.95, and 12 months for $29.95. What this page doesn't say is that you could pay us any of these prices and we'll never shut your account off. So you could buy 1 month, you have a lifelong subscription. You could buy 12 month, you'll have a lifelong subscription. We never wrote the code to go in and check, okay, when did they pay us the money? Did the payment go through? How long has it been? Should they be allowed to log in? Should they go back? We just didn't write any of it. And the best part of this is it saved us a ton of time. We still were able to validate that people would pay for this. No one's complained. And we have thousands of people who pay for the product. Not a single person has ever complained to us. No one's posted in a blog and said, hey, I got free Carrot Sticks. No one's done it. And I think the idea is that most of them think, for the ones who notice, probably they think it's a bug, and if they say anything, we're going to cut it off. So make a shortcut that actually makes their lives better. You know, if we had decided this is a really worthwhile thing to do, we can always build this in later. And speaking of, Optimizely, the prices are a bit higher. Starts at 17 bucks a month, then up to $71 a month, and then $400 a month, and then Platinum it's thousands of dollars a month. And each one of these says you can test 2,000 users a month or 200,000 users a month. For the entire first year and a half of Optimizely's existence, we never actually checked to see how many users anyone was using. So you could pay us 17 bucks a month and use 10 million users, we'd never know. And it was really funny because people actually self-regulated. Like they would sort of say, oh, my traffic's getting kind of big, and they would pay up to the next level. It was remarkable. I mean, we just didn't fix it. We ended up actually making, you can look at our revenue, and when we actually did implement it, we started charging people for overages. Our revenue jumped, but early on, it's just not a big deal, right? You can increase your revenue by 20%, but when you're only making $1,000 a month, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So that was a good one for us. Don't worry about scaling. And when I say scaling, I don't mean scaling as in engineering-wise, although I don't think you should worry about that either, which is ironic because I used to work on App Engine, whose sole pitch is that it scales for engineers. But scaling is not just about engineering. Scaling is about your business processes and how you interact with your customers. So when you have 10,000 customers, you cannot pick up the phone and call every single one of them. When you have 10, you can. When you have 50, you can. It's not hard. And you can do this, and you can just say, okay, when we get to X, we'll stop doing it, and that's fine. I remember talking to someone from SurveyMonkey, I think, and they had this practice where up until thousands of customers, they would write each one of their customers a handwritten thank you note. Said, thanks for being a customer. Let us know if you have any questions, anything like that. Super simple. They had everyone on the team work on these things, and the kind of response and loyalty they got was amazing from the customers. So do things that don't scale early on. It's really valuable, helps you connect with your customers, helps them come onto your side. And when they're on your side, they'll tell you, hey, this sucks, but I'm going to keep using it if you fix this, etc. You just have a great opportunity to connect with them. This is the best time to talk to your visitors when they stop using your product. We have a, I'll tell you about that in a second, but the reason why is because you had someone who was on your site or who was using your app or who was whatever it is you do, and they decided that it wasn't good enough. It sucked, so they left. What was it about the experience that caused that? That's probably the #1 thing that you should be working on, is fixing it, if you see it more than once. How do we do this with Optimizely? It's kind of shady. but sometimes you got to be a little shady. Here is the account settings page in the beginning. I think I just sort of doctored this up to make it look like what it looked before. This is everything about your account. You can see what plan you're on. You can see how many users. This didn't actually exist at the time, but you could see what plan you were on. You could see your email and everything. Notice what is missing from this page. Does anyone notice?
Cancel button.
This is cancel button. There's no cancel button on the page. You could not cancel it. Instead, we said if you want, oh, shit. Oh yeah, sorry. This is what it used to look like. Sorry, minus all that extra fancy stuff. It just said to modify your subscription, send us an email. And we had a lot of people cancel. People cancel all the time. They churn in, they churn out. And I would say that probably only 5% of them were annoyed about this. The rest of them just said, hey, how do I cancel? It's almost like they were just expecting it. I mean, when we first made the decision, I was like, oh God, people are going to hate us. But they didn't. And instead, we actually got to talk to each one of them about why they were canceling. We found a lot of bugs, a lot of things that were wrong with the software, just a lot of things we weren't doing that well that maybe we wouldn't have found otherwise. Okay, so growth. So you have a product now. You've validated that people will pay for it or they'll use it. You're starting to figure out how to market and how to reach these users. You're getting them on board. You're doing great. Now analytics matter. And that's important. So you now have too many users to talk to them individually. I'm not saying you should stop talking to them. I think it's really important. But you can now start to get some useful information from analytics packages. So what are some good ones? Google Analytics is really good. Kissmetrics is great as well. Kissmetrics, I think, is they've got some great ways to look at funnels, and they also they're a lot better at tracking sort of custom events and custom things like that. If you guys are building mobile apps, Flurry is a really good one. If you guys have used it, if you're building social apps, Contingent. It's a way to do cohort analysis and to find out how many people in each sort of cohort are sharing and how many of those are sharing. It's a pretty cool interface. And then always be testing. That's my other bit of advice once you get to this point. And I'll relay an anecdote. This is not my anecdote, it's my co-founder's, but it's from the Obama campaign in 2008. It's a significant test they did. I ripped these slides from another presentation. It looks like some of the text is sort of screwed up, so I'll just go over it. So this was the BarackObama.com landing page in, I think, early 2008. And there's a splash image up here, and then a button, a sign-up button down there. And they ran an experiment on the page over the course of about a week or so, or 2 weeks. And they tested a bunch of different buttons and a bunch of different pieces of media. So this is the crowd interaction part of this presentation. I'm going to go through the different pieces of creative that they tested. So the first one is the sign up button. Just says sign up. Learn more. Join us now. And sign up now. So those 4 buttons. And then on the media side, get involved. Change we can believe in. So this is the family image. The change image, just the headshot of Mr. B. And then 3 videos. So there's one. I guess they're not going to play. There's one of him. He's just, it's sort of like a talking head of him giving a speech, I think, maybe. Springfield video. It's a case video about Springfield, Illinois. And then Sam's video, I think it's another sort of human interest video about stuff. I'm not really big into politics. But so here's the experiment. We're going to do an audience voting thing. So how many of you on the button side, how many of you think sign up won? How many of you think learn more won? About 3, 4. How many think join us now won? All right, most of you. And then sign up now. 2. All right, on the media, the get involved image here, I'll go back through. Get involved. Change, or the family image. About 2, 3. Change we can believe in. Loads of you. The Barack video of just him talking. Kind of hard if you can't see it. The Springfield video, sort of study on Springfield, Illinois. Sam's video. This is the other case study one that I didn't talk about for long, so clearly it's not going to win. All right, no one. So what actually won? Learn More won on the button, and the family image won on the media. And I'm not going to point fingers, but you guys are all wrong for the most part. I think a few of you made it. Did anyone guess both those? God damn. Man behind the camera for a reason. So this was a big surprise to everyone on the campaign. And the biggest surprise was that everybody on the campaign picked one of these 3 videos. And why do you think they picked the videos?
They made it.
Because they made it. Why the videos? They made the images too. Videos are hard to make. And if you spend a long time and a lot of money making a video, all the editing, all the shooting, the sound, everything like that, Cameron can tell us about this, I'm sure, you get really married to it. You get really attached to it. And what ends up happening in most cases in website design is you have what's called the hippo syndrome, the highest paid person's opinion. That's what makes design decisions in most cases. And everybody in that room, including the highest paid person, thought the videos were going to do well. Surprisingly, none of the videos did better than any of the images. It was a big surprise to everyone on the team. So what are we actually talking about here? So they ran initially one experiment on the Learn More, a brief experiment on the buttons, and a brief experiment on the video, and they saw Learn More was winning and the family was winning. Then they combined the two. They ran a longer experiment, and it showed that the Learn More button, Learn More family image combination outperformed the original variation by 40% in terms of people who clicked through to learn more. In terms of people who signed up to become volunteers, or email. They signed up their email on the email list. So what did this actually mean? So on the original page, if you sort of apply some analysis to it, they would have gotten 7 million email subscription signups. You raise that by 40%, you get an extra 2.8 million email signups, meaning you get about 10 million email signups over the course of the campaign. Because email signups were much more likely to volunteer than non, you'd get an extra 288,000 volunteers going door to door or calling. And in amount raised, because email signups, again, you could spam the hell out of them, they were much more likely to donate than non-email signups. This meant an extra $57 million in funds raised for the campaign, which is a staggering amount through a test. So that's why testing is very important. Last one, success. Your product is great. You've got tons of users. Good work. You listened. And that's it.